All right, to Daily Caller editorial director Vince Cullinane. We've got former New York Congresswoman and Trump 2020 advisory board member Nan Hayworth, and last but not least, radio show host Ben Kissel. Ben, ended with you. I'm outraged.
Oh, I can tell you're outraged, and looking at that cover of Newsweek, I'm starving.
Can you believe it?
I love the life, yeah. I mean, this is obviously what happens now with the magazine industry. This is clickbait culture hitting the magazine racks. They're desperate to sell papers, and that's, what's going on here.
But
people will just grab it for the
he
cover.
hasn't done a damn thing.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, there is the reason behind this. Of course, he can't get health care passed. The tax plan doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Donald Trump, he's sort of like Donald Trump is sort of like a chef who promises you the most tremendous omelet, the greatest omelet, and when he gets in the kitchen, we find out he doesn't know how to break open any eggs.
But fine, he served them a couple of appetizers.
But that is
you're seeing it through the prism of legislative victories that have, you're quite right, have been too few and far between.
I mean, we have over 100 executive orders or executive actions.
For one reason.
What's the one reason?
Well, the obstructionist Congress, sure.
The obstructionist Senate
that's the
particular, Ben. It's not. It's
well,
not.
that's a lot of Republicans, too. But I'm just saying here, in this coverage,
yes,
no one's even giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying give him all benefit, no doubt. I'm saying there are benefits and doubts. Cover both.
This is not objective reporting, and while I hate to invoke Secretary Clinton's name in this context necessarily, but you know what? She used to talk about the great right-wing conspiracy. This is basically almost like a great left-wing conspiracy. Yeah. These so-called journalists are disgracing the name of journalism. This isn't journalism, it's advocacy.
Well, my big fear, Vince, and I understand certainly what Ben is saying, is that it's not all one way. These investigations that might be expanding with impaneling a grand jury on the Russia thing, have at it. We reported, devoted my entire Fox News show to that yesterday. It's a compelling, legitimately big story, especially if it leads to where some people say it could lead, even though I talk to other people who say it might not lead to that at all. My only point is, cover both, cover all. But to put this President of the United States on a cover and already conclude he's a disaster, I don't know. That's not even approaching journalism.
If the president is lazy, turn me over. I have bed sores. I have 2 jobs. This guy gets up like earlier than everyone. He gets up certainly earlier than most of Washington, D.C. does. Just this week alone, he's fired his communications director, hired a new chief of staff, awarded a Medal of Honor to a Vietnam veteran. He had several meetings with small business people and with Veterans Affairs. He introduced a new immigration bill. He had a rally last night. I don't know. Does that seem like a lazy schedule to you? Not in any sense of the word. This is clearly a desperate move. If you're waiting in the checkout aisle at a grocery store, maybe you'll be compelled by this. But beyond that,
I do think that's part of. I think Ben hit on that, and this notion that it catches you, and it caught me right away to say, "Oh, that's an interesting cover." It wasn't too different from the Time magazine one, where the whole, all of White House was being painted red.
Yes, of course. There's a reason Newsweek sold for $1 a couple years ago, but. On the legislative front, yes, he's struggled to get some legislative victories because he's faced a wall in Congress. But when it comes to things that he signed a lot of legislation that's been very good for the economy, and that's those congressional review acts. He's regularly signed things to deregulate the government.
And I think that the failure to develop a health care alternative, the failure at this point to delay, and maybe substantially weaken tax cuts, which you don't know yet, could be a real problem for him. And I believe, Ben, as you do, that legislative victories do count for something, but we forget there are other criteria used to judge the success or lack thereof of a president. Yeah, if this market were tanking, for example, they would be all over this president.
I mean, the excuse that he's not lazy because he constantly has to replace people in his administration might not be the best example of how busy he is, because it doesn't really show him as a great leader.
Is he doing any good in your eyes?
There are some good. Of course, the economy, as you mentioned, GDP is at 2.6%. There are some good things. But, he's on his 41st golf trip. This reads horribly. He's looking to spend more than
when President Obama.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. And so did all
I don't care what Barack Obama, he takes golf trips. I don't care whether.
This is my favorite liberal criticism. This is my favorite liberal criticism, by the way. I wish President Trump was doing more to hurt the country. And it's crazy. You want him golfing if you don't like the president's agenda.
hasn't slept in a long time.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not a liberal, so I'm not concerned about the criticism. Rational, a good moderate that's going to help save this country.
You must know it's then rational to expect the good and the bad.
Of course,
because I much prefer getting both the left and right angry than getting one side happy.
When they're both angry, the middle of the country is doing much better. But if you look at the money being spent, the optics are horrible. $55 million so far on golf trips. When people in West Virginia, coal miners see that, it might not be laziness, but it's projected as he's on vacation.
You know, when Vince was talking about people looking in grocery aisles at Newsweek, they're not. That's the thing. President Trump last night in West Virginia was there when the governor of West Virginia announced that he can no longer do anything for his people as a Democrat. He's
I'm so glad you said that, because his first TV interview since that big switch is on this show. Which, merely minutes from now, the West Virginia governor,
even
Jim
further
Justice,
proves his astuteness.
Neil,
exactly. I have to say, he has come to the source.
But do you sense, and I'm quick to point out the failure to do something on health care. That blew me away. I don't blame just the president. There are a lot of factors to it.
Absolutely.
But I do think that it's a huge, huge minus mark. But I also look at this other stuff that's pretty easy to point out.
Right. There's no question about it. The president has reactivated the economy. The stock market is soaring because there is a reflection of great confidence that this president has expressed.
But if he doesn't deliver, if he doesn't deliver on that, do you think this market could reverse?
I do think it could reverse, Neil, potentially. But I will give it this: the president has already, as you've pointed out, through his executive orders, through his congressional review acts, he is already, through the changes he's made to the EPA, common sense changes, through what he's done to activate American energy. So you think that's stuff that no one's appreciating.
Vince, do you agree with that? That's something we're not factoring in.
That's essential. I think the markets have responded really well to both deregulation and the promise that Trump won't further regulate. If you're going to make a bet on whether or not you're going to have more regulations hampering down the markets in a Trump administration, you're going to bet that there's not going to be more. I mean, he's campaigned on that, and clearly, within the power of the things that he can control, if he can shrink the scale of the administrative state and not bring on new regulations, that will have made him a success in a very meaningful way.
Impact, though, Ben. I think Lazy Boy sales are going to go through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. I'm buying one immediately. Yes, and chips and the whole thing.
Right. That Lazy Boy is going to do us a lot of good.
Trump could do himself some favors, though. Stop the tweeting in the morning. It's just it's an image that he has put upon himself.
I don't mind the tweeting as long as he stays on message.
And exactly.
Well, and that's the problem.
And that's why he tweets, because when he's being treated the way he is, in such a bizarre way by the media, he has to communicate.
Okay, guys, I want to thank you all. You notice what we did here? We gave you both sides. We gave you the good, the bad. We gave you Ben. I kid, but to make the point, man, oh man, this isn't difficult. You know what's agenda? When you leave out the one side altogether. We try not to do that here, and so we've alienated a lot of people. Hopefully you're not one of them and you're not turning off the set. But I, for one, find Lazy Boys to be very, very comfortable, and the more food on the Lazy Boy, the better.
Or in the Lazy Boy, yeah.
And I'm years into this career, 30-plus years into this career. No one's on to me. Sorry to rant and rave, but man, oh man, that's not right. Not right at all. A little more to this.